Hey, welcome to the Old Geezers show for Wednesday, the 4th of January 2023. I'm Chris, and we're off with a few stories to start our new year. What are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about a change petition. That's change.org, doing a petition for sorting out the NHS. That's a damn good idea, isn't it? We'll look at that in a moment. We're going to look at an optimistic story about hopefully changing some of the TV license arrangements so that people who are not exceedingly well off can actually end up, how can we put it, can actually end up getting a better deal on the BBC. And we're also going to talk about I hope, some fairly worthwhile things in terms of changing the license so that there may be a way of actually reducing some bills for some people. Be interesting to see where that one goes. So we're doing that. That's number two. And number three, well, this is not a good piece. This is the Financial Times talking about the recession. I'm really just going to link that into our system so that you're aware of it and so you can have a look for yourself. I am no financial expert, so let's not beat about the bush and say that I'm going to tell you the answer to the universe, because I ain't. Okay. What we're going to look at first, I think we'll look first at a piece that actually quite impressed me. This is going back a few weeks, but it really only just came to the forefront. A former Director General of the mighty BBC, Tony Hall, has called for poorer people to pay less for the licence fee than wealthier households. That seems to me to be a damn good idea, because the reality is that people have different amounts of money, and poorer people are actually, honestly, getting poorer. That certainly seems to be the case. With the rise in the cost of living, people who are better off can afford to absorb some of the costs without going skint, and other people are really having a tough time. And in a moment, we'll just look at something that Tony Hall said. I'll put that up actually now, because it's worth looking at, I think. Let's just get to that one and say, there we go. What Tony Hall said, we have to remember that there are still 8 million people, mostly people who are poorer, live alone, have a disability, or are old, who rely on broadcast TV as it is. Interesting one, isn't it? Because the current chief exec of the mighty BBC, that's Tim someone or other, Tim Davie, says that he wants the BBC to become totally online, all on one app on the internet. And are we going to pay 150 quid a year to have an app on the internet? Apps cost nothing, mate, really. Interesting one, isn't it? Really an interesting one. The BBC are saying there are only going to be one app on the internet. So what about all the people who ain't got the internet? There's allegedly, according to Tony Hall, there's 8 million of them out there, 8 million people, and they're going to be cut off. Hey, goodbye. Well, such is life. You have to get an app. Oh, right. How do I do that? Goodness me. This is a scary one, isn't it? I think it's really quite worrying, but it is an opening door. The door is opening now for a proper review of what's happening to the BBC licence fee. And hopefully, as long as the government don't do another contract on us again, hopefully the whole thing might work out so we actually get a better deal as ordinary people in the street, let's say. We might get a better deal from the government for ourselves, for us, for ordinary people, you and me. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, so that's number one. That is our first story that I want you to be aware of. There will be hopefully a change coming up, or at least a discussion, and we're going to try and get some of that discussion on this channel. If you want to see more of that, just get in touch with me. Okay, next thing. This is a really interesting one, and I'm just going to get rid of, that's it. Just going to get rid of another little bit of my stuff on here. I'll keep you a moment. There we go. So what have we got? We have got this, this is a really interesting one. We all know that the NHS is in trouble. But a guy has put up a really interesting petition, which is calling on the government to actually bloody do something. He's got a lot of people signed up. I'm signed up, and I hope you're going to sign up. And he's saying essentially what we need to do is address this crisis now, admit there's a crisis because the government are once again trying to whitewash it, and admit there's a big problem and go and get something done on this problem with the NHS. The government constantly say, oh, we're giving them loads of money, we're giving them loads of money. Well, money doesn't solve the problem. The problem is actually putting some thought into ways of getting around it. We'll just give them some money. No, try and think about it. And this guy has come up with a number of ideas. One idea that I have to say I really, really like is he's come up with a thought which says, from his point of view, that what we ought to do is tie up the nurses, the doctors, all actually really all of the NHS and possibly all of the rest of the civil service to what MPs get as a rise every year. MPs most recently got 2,200 quid extra a year. Why don't they just give that to all government employees and say, well, if we're worth it, I'm sure you are. That would be a scary one for the government, wouldn't it? Really would be. Okay, so, hey. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's have a look at young Darren. Morning, Darren. Hope you're well. I think that what needs to happen is the BBC to review the scandalous salaries they paid the likes of Gary Lineker, around 1.3 million a year. Even radio presenters are raking in 500,000 a year. There's a lot of truth to that, actually, Darren. I'll tell you one of the things that gets to me is that the BBC presenters are very popular guys, let's be honest, very popular women and men. But in reality, if they weren't working for the BBC, where would they go? So that's the interesting one, isn't it? There isn't space for all those presenters on the commercial radio systems, and commercial radio systems are cutting back on presentation all the time, really, because their idea is to make as much money as possible, and paying presenters ain't on their list of good things to do. So I think the BBC, yes, I think the BBC, you are right. The BBC probably wastes millions of pounds on fees and pay. There you go. Let's look at that one again another time, I think, because that's worth looking at again. Okay, but let's just go back to that change petition, which I want to really remind you of and get you to have a look at. Please do put a link. Okay, someone's just sent me a private message. Please do put a link to this petition on the page, and I'll put it on YouTube, and if I can, I'll put it on Facebook. I'll probably put it in the comments and see what we can do about this, because the more people that sign it, the better. I know that when I signed yesterday, there were about 60 or 70,000 people, and now there's well over 100,000 people have signed this petition. And if we get up to sort of 250,000, even 500,000, if this guy gets up to that, then people really do start to take it seriously, because from the politicians' point of view, guys, it's a bit scary. They don't like it. They don't want to know that hundreds of thousands of people are hacked with them about this situation. We all know we are. They know we are. And they are desperately trying to cover the whole damn thing up, which is, I'm sad to say, what governments tend to do all the time, isn't it? They try and cover stuff up all the time. Okay. Let's move on to my item number 3. And this is the one for this one. This is really... I'm not very happy about publishing this, but I thought I ought to, really. If you are interested in how the economic system works, have a look at this Financial Times article. Every year, the Financial Times send out a questionnaire to a lot of economists. These are very clever people, as we all jolly well know. They send them out to economists and say, please, pretty please, tell us what you think is going to happen in the year ahead. And without exception, all of the economists they went to have said it's going to be dire and awful. So I'm really kind of giving you a link to go and read it for yourself if you wish. But essentially, the story is that everybody says this coming year is going to be dreadful. and we're going to see what happens. In reality, we all know it's going to be dreadful, and we know that we need a government that's on the side of the people and not on the side of the millionaires, is my honest view. But there you have it. Okay, let's just go back to where I should have been. There we go. Okay, so that is my third and final story. Let's just run you through those again. So you've got what we've got in front of you. Let's see. First of all, The Economist. If you want to go and look at that, you can have a look for yourself, see what you think. And I couldn't work out a way of getting, to be honest with you, I couldn't work out a way of getting to this article through the proper link. If you go through the proper link, then you get a paywall. But if you search that search phrase, then you should be able to get to that article and read it all for yourself. It's quite a long read, but it's interesting and pretty uniform, I have to say. Okay, let's just go back to where we were and have a look at that. The next thing to remind you of is this one. Do go and sign this one, please, pretty please. I do believe that anybody, whatever your political viewpoints, whatever your viewpoint, should maybe go and jump on this one, sign it up, and make your opinion felt, please, pretty please. Okay, let's see where we can go with that one. Okay, and let's move on to our final little story, which is this one, which I like a lot, which is the BBC, or an ex-director general of the BBC, saying the current system of BBC licensing fees is not fair to poorer people. And I'll remind you of what Tony Hall said. Let's just give you the comment that came at the end of his speech. He said, we have got to remember that there are still 8 million people, mostly people who are poorer, live alone, have a disability, or are old, who rely on broadcast TV as it is now. I have to say that one really gets from the point of old people, old blighters like me. We have to be honest enough to say that, in fact, if you pay your license fee, which I know you all do, we all do, don't we? If we pay the license fee, then it's a lot of money. Do we get value for money? I think actually in the world as it is now, I think we probably don't get that much value for money from the BBC. Dot and I watch probably 2 or 3 programs a day, including the news, and quite a lot of other stuff comes from Netflix, and we pay a £5 a month for Netflix, and that's kind of, I don't know, 60 quid a year, and we're paying 3 times that to have the BBC, and we're not watching it. So where do you go with that one? I'd love to know what you think about BBC license fees. I would love to know what you think about all the topics we've covered today. Please get in touch and let me know what you think. Without you telling me stuff, I'm never going to know what you think. So let's just go to a little caption and say we have got Old Geezer Show coming up soon. We'll bring you any news story we can get that affects old people and that doesn't grab big headlines. Tell us what's affecting or hurting or helping you so we can share it and we can run it as a story. We really do want to hear from you. You can contact me directly via Facebook or YouTube, or you can email me, production@seriousleisure.co.uk. And that's about it for this show. I hope you found it interesting. I hope I haven't gabbled it up too much. If you like the show, give us a like or a love. Don't forget that you can always, at any time, you can always get in touch with us at any time through those channels that I mentioned. And I really do want to hear from you. I want to have your stories. I want to know what you think about the world that we live in today from an older person's point of view. Okay, that's going to be it. I'm going to say thank you so much for watching. If you've watched and enjoyed it, let me know. Tell me what you think, because I always want to know. I'm Chris. This is the Old Geezer's Diary, and it's the 4th of January, 2023, and I'll see you soon.